I was 30 by the time we got married. My wife was 26, and we thought we were set. I had my PhD, she had her degrees. We really felt like we were set. And then, almost 2 years in, our largest opponent came into our marriage, weighing 8 pounds and 1 ounce, and that was our son. He was a troubling infant. He had colic, which I still don't understand what that is, acid reflux, and later, 2 years later, we had our daughter. She had stomach allergies we couldn't figure out. They screamed at the top of their lungs, and we really struggled early on with our infants. Listen, we have to talk about children. If you're getting married, there's a couple different conversations you want to have. That first one, obviously, is, do you want to have children? And maybe you're getting married and neither one of you want to have children. Again, there's no right or wrong here, but what is right for you. And you want to have that conversation. This could very well be a do or die situation. This could very well be in terms of your relationship and whether or not you want to pursue marriage. If one of you wants to have kids and the other one doesn't, that is a conversation you must have. How many children do you want to have? We originally said we wanted maybe 3, maybe 4. Our first 2, as I just mentioned and let in, were so difficult. We thought we were set. But we had so many traumatic experiences early on with our first 2. My wife threw her back out. She was on bed rest for 3 weeks when our daughter was 6 months old. Our son was 2.5 years old. And we just really, really struggled. My dad wasn't doing well in the hospital. He had congestive heart failure. We were really struggling. I'm just going to say it. It was a traumatic time for us. And not only that, but naturally, research shows that marital satisfaction tends to dip the most right after you have children. And so I want you to be prepared for this. I'm telling you this right now so that you're already prepared and you have a plan in place for when and if and when this happens for you and your family. So think about this, talk about this. Do you want to adopt children? That's another conversation that you want to have. Do you want to be foster parents? What does that look like? What do you envision for being parents in the future? Those are conversations that you want to have. I think one of the most important conversations that you have in this is, how do you stay intimately connected? How do you stay emotionally connected when right after this, you're not having sex? You're not having sex for a while, but even sex is hard to come by because you're up through the night. You're not getting much sleep. And I want to tell you something. If you want to hurt an enemy, I think if you want to torture somebody, give them sleep deprivation. I don't think there's any worse thing that you can experience than sleep deprivation. I can remember one night in the middle of the night, we have some really funny stories, some not so good stories of us being up with our kids in the middle of the night. Funny ones where Christy's asking me questions like, how old am I? She even forgot how old she was, to really getting into some serious arguments. And one piece of advice I give to every couple who just had kids is, don't argue in the middle of the night. It is nothing fruitful is going to come of it. Just do your thing and take care of the baby and get back to sleep. You can deal with it when you're rested. Put a plan together for this because it will happen if you have children and you want to be ready for it. You want to be prepared for it. The other conversation to have is, how are you going to take care of the children? If you're both working, is one of you going to stay home with the baby? Who's that going to be? What is that going to look like? Can you afford daycare? Will you afford daycare? Will you both continue to work? Navigate those conversations because you'll want to make sure you have them. They're important to have, especially knowing that marital satisfaction, I think the biggest conversation I want to have here as it relates to this is, how can you make sure you stay emotionally connected and have a plan in place for when this happens? And again, sometimes life throws you a curveball. Sometimes you have a baby with medical needs. Sometimes you have a baby that has a disability, and it's going to require even more of you than you ever thought or dreamt or imagined. But listen, you have what it takes to get through those difficult situations and scenarios. You can put the best of plans together and it still may not come into fruition the way you planned it. But here's the reality. At least you've been prepared. You've been prepared for how to speak to one another, how to champion one another, and how to fight for one another in the middle of having children and growing your family. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Whether you adopt, have foster kids, have children of your own, this is a beautiful part of growing your family and being married, but make sure you have conversations around it. And then the other part of this, how will and we can go back to the conversations you had with your parents. How will your parents, your in-laws, interact with your grandkids? How often will they see them? What are the expectations that you have for how often they'll get to see family? Have these conversations. Once again, they're very important.